Welcome to Climate Quickies, bite-sized nuggets of climate goodness from our TEDxLondon experts in under 10 minutes. In this week's Climate Curious, we're learning about how water is more than a resource. It's a relative. Water professor and protector Kelsey Leonard shares how she's working to ensure water gets the same legal rights as humans. Even though water is essential to life, it still remains relatively unprotected under the law. On what it looks like to be a true water protector, recorded live at TED 2025 with Maryam Pasha, here's Kelsey Leonard. Stay curious.
I'm joined today by Kelsey Leonard. You are a water protector, a scientist, and a professor at the University of Waterloo in Canada. What is a water protector?
So I think for me, in my language, Shinnecock, which is the nation that I am a citizen of, it means people of the stony shore. So for me, being a water protector, I think my ancestors had this really beautiful idea, morality around what it means to call yourself Shinnecock is to be someone who protects that shore. If you are of that shore, then you're someone who has a responsibility to protect it. And so being a water protector for me is protecting that shore, that place where land and water meet. And that's really informed how I've thought about water protection. And I think for different Indigenous peoples around the world, water protection may mean a little bit different definition. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think it's also about what are the waters that we belong to. And in that belonging, we find our purpose and responsibility for an ethic of care.
Incredible. So obviously doing this work is deeply rooted into who you are and what you bring. Can you tell us a bit more about your work?
Yeah. So very, very long bio probably, but let's just
start.
Like
it. Let's go into it.
Yeah, let's start with maybe what brings us all here. We're at TED 2025 to reimagine humanity, and I was fortunate to become a part of the TED community in 2019 when I gave a talk called Why Lakes and Rivers Should Have the Same Rights as Humans.
I remember this talk. I actually really remember this talk, and I loved it. It was so moving.
Well, thank you so much. It really was inspired by all of the wonderful, largely women in my life who have mentored me and shared how they've cultivated a relationship with water over their lives, and that transcends their time on this planet because it goes back through their ancestors and through their communities. And they really had amplified this message to me that water is more than a resource, it is a relative. And so that's what brought me to TED, was to share that global movement that's emerged to really see our current environmental laws transformed into a system that we call Earth Law, which is really recognizing that the planet and everything that makes up this beautiful planet, including water, has a right to exist, thrive, and flourish. And so that's what being a water scientist means to me today. It's about that intersection of science, policy, and law, and how we protect water for the planet and for future generations.
This is so interesting. You know, in the UK right now, there's a real crisis around our rivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious to know, you said this intersection of law, of science, of climate, of traditional knowledge. How does that manifest in the world for you? What kind of things are you working on right now?
So right now, we're actively working to advance Earth Law movements at a local level. So for me, what does that look like?
Yep.
Well, we see a lot of Indigenous nations that are passing laws to recognize the inherent rights of natural beings, including rivers and lakes and the ocean. We also see nation states doing that as well. We saw one of the foundational moments in human history was when the nation of Ecuador revised their constitution in 2008 to recognize the rights of nature. And more recently, we've seen the Sea of Mar Menor in Spain gain legal rights. We saw the Whanganui River in Aotearoa, New Zealand gain legal rights as well. And so we're seeing all of these rivers, lakes, water entities around our planet gain these rights. And so as a scientist and a researcher, it's being able to document those innovations. And so we have something now called the Eco-Jurisprudence Monitor. You can go to ecojurisprudencemonitor.org, and you can find all of these initiatives around our planet, either by country jurisdiction or by ecological actor. So pretty cool.
So for those, and here's a very basic question.
Yes.
For those of us who are not in the law, why are these natural entities having legal rights so important? Like, what does that enable? Why is that a thing we need?
Okay, very, very good question. So right now in our legal system, if you are not recognized as a legal person under the law, you don't have any rights to be heard by a court or by a justice. And so the best example we have is through a series of case law precedent in our legal system, laws that were established. We gave that legal personality recognition to corporations.
Right. And I've heard of this. This is something we've heard of, yes.
And so a corporation who is harmed can go before a court and express that harm and try and have that harm remedied by the justice or the court of law. The same rights are not available to nature as of yet in many instances until there's a rights of nature or earth law initiative put forward to recognize that entity as a legal person. And so that's what we're seeing blossoming in the past 2 decades around the planet.
That's super exciting. Have you seen any in this movement of gaining rights? Have you seen that then be used in any way by individuals, I guess I'm inarticulately asking this question of like, what has that been used? Those rights ever been? What am I trying to say? Can we wait? Let me reformulate this question. You get stuck in your head. Okay, so this is why it's important for these entities to have rights. Are those rights or those new kind of laws being used in any way, have you seen around the world? Yes.
So one that I really like to highlight, it's sort of a combination approach, but the Yurok tribe in California, they recognize the rights of the Klamath River. Simultaneously in recognizing those rights, they also were putting forward dam decommissioning. So a lot of rights of river initiatives, they call for the river to be able to flow freely. So that would then also allow for greater advocacy or power in movements to decommission dams, to remove them. So that has now happened on the Klamath River. There have been dams that have been decommissioned. The river now has rights through different tribal initiatives and laws, and we're now seeing a return of salmon into that river that they haven't seen salmon runs like that in decades.
Wow. It's incredible it's not simple, obviously, what you're doing, but it's so elegant. Like, it's this idea of unlocking the power, existing power of the legal system. Mm-hmm. What are your hopes around this Earth Law movement? Like, what do you think it can really do if it gains a scale and a momentum?
So I have wonderful colleagues at the Earth Law Center, a nonprofit international organization that continues to advocate for these initiatives globally. And there's a few things that we want to see happen. We want to continue to see these initiatives grow, but folks also need resources. They need tools at a local level to be able to do these types of grassroots movements. So the Earth Law Center has developed what's called the Earth Law Portal, and that's also available online at the earthlawportal.org. And in using that, you can download legal templates, you can download letter campaigns to write to your local politicians. At TED, we've heard that a lot in terms of how do you activate, and sometimes it's going to be something really big and sometimes it's going to be really small, and that's what I love about these different resources.
If you could redesign like the global water governance system from scratch, what principles would you instill in its foundation?
We had a period in our history where we created environmental laws almost in a reactionary stance. We had rivers that were on fire. We had cities consumed by smog. We were just trying to make a world that humans could step outside in and exist in. But now those environmental laws, they're not sufficient. We're still seeing massive biodiversity loss. We're still seeing the impacts of climate change. So we need laws that can be more responsive to the frequency of change that we're seeing in our world today. And so that's what I think the Earth Law can do. It really says that we're not setting up environmental laws so that we can legalize the destruction of nature up to a certain threshold so that humans can still use it. But we're saying, no, what does nature need to thrive and to exist? And so I think that has to be at the core of what we see for water law and governance moving forward. It's not that we need to, throw everything away. We've got really good principles in the world and really good leadership from indigenous nations and other countries around the world. We need to have more democracy and plurality in how we think about water governance.
What a beautiful sentiment to end on. Thank you so much for joining us, Kelsey.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this quickie.
This episode was created by our superstar podcast team at TEDxLondon. Until next time,
Stay curious.